Good night, little pumpkins. It's time for another bedtime story. And today, I have this amazing story for us of Monsters Inc. Let's see their amazing adventure. The Spooky Sleepover by Monsters Inc. It was a quiet morning at Monsters Inc. James P. Sullivan, and also known as Sully, had gotten in early to catch up on his paperwork. He smiled as he reviewed the monthly laugh reports. At Monsters Inc., it was a monster job to go to the human world and make kids laugh. The laughs were used as energy for the city of Monstropolis. It had been Sully's idea, and now he was president of Monsters Inc. He was glad everything was going so well. Suddenly, the phone rang. "Hello," said Sully. "It's dispatcher," said the voice at the other end of the line. "Annual slumber party at little Shannon Brown's house. Waxford is out sick. We need a replacement." "I'll get right on it," replied Sully. He knew that there would be a lot of kids at the party, and he wanted to make sure he had a monster there to tell jokes and capture laughs. Sully thought hard about who to send. He wanted to put his best monster on the case. He smiled to himself. Who better for this job than his one-eyed pal, Mike Wazowski? Mike was Monsters Inc. top laugh collector. He could make anyone laugh. Sully knew his best friend would be perfect for the job. Mike was in the locker room getting ready for work. He had just finished putting his contact lens, which was the size of a pizza, in his one eye when Sully walked in. Sully explained the situation to Mike. "I'm your man," Mike said confidently. "Great!" Sully exclaimed. Whistling, he went back to the office to finish his laugh reports. "Piece of cake," Mike said as the door slid into his station on the laugh floor. "One joke and I'll collect enough energy for the year." Then Mike opened the door and walked through the closet in Shannon Brown's room. It was empty. "Hello?" Mike called. He looked around the room. He peeked under the bed, but there was no one there. Some party, he thought. "I wonder where everyone is. Maybe I should go back." Just as Mike started walking through the closet, he heard the sound of laughter. "All right, now we are in business," Mike exclaimed. "Kids, prepare to laugh." Just then, thunder cracked across the sky, and a flash of lightning lit up the dark room. Mike jumped. If there was one thing he didn't like, it was the thunderstorm. "I'm okay, I'm fine," Mike shouted. Then he ran to the closet door to return to the factory. Mike jiggled the doorknob, but it just opened into the closet, not the laugh floor at Monsters Inc. There was no way out. Mike soon realized that lightning must have struck the door and broken it. Don't panic, he told himself, his voice shaking. He knew he had to finish the summer party and another closet door. Fast! Otherwise, who knew how long he'd be stuck there? Mike took a deep breath and headed into the dark hallway. He was sure he heard laughs coming from somewhere. Now all he had to do was find it. As he started walking, the floor made a noise beneath him. Creak. Halfway down the hallway, Mike stopped and looked around. There were some paintings on the wall that looked very creepy to him. They gave Mike goosebumps, and he was pretty sure the people in the paintings were staring right at him. "I gotta get out of here," Mike murmured to himself as he continued down the hallway. Then He saw something and froze. Mike couldn't believe his eye. Sitting at the end of the hall was a large, furry creature with fangs. It was panting heavy. "Oh man!" he cried. "Am I ever glad to see a fellow monster around here." Taking a deep breath, Mike started to walk closer to the creature. Just as he did, the creature lunged through him, knocking him down. Within a second, it began to lick Mike. "Ah!" he screamed. "Dog breath!" Mike hated dogs. He pushed the dog off him and ran as fast as he could into a nearby room. He slammed the door shut. He was safe for now. Meanwhile, back at Monsters Inc., Sully was working on the lab floor. The floor manager came running over. "Sally! Sally!" he shouted. "Mike still hasn't returned from the slumber party. He's never been gone so long." When Sully went to check on the door, he discovered it had malfunctions. It didn't open into a closet. That meant that Mike was stuck in Shannon Brown's house. "Uh-oh," said Sully. "We gotta get Mike out of there." Sully brought in a maintenance crew to figure out how to fix the door. Together, the monster pulled all the levels and pushed all the buttons on the door to try to get it to open properly. When that didn't work, Sully read the emergency manuals. He and the other monsters tried everything they could. After a few hours, the doors made a clicking sound. It was working. Now it would open into a different room at Shannon's house. The monsters cheered. Back in the house, Mike walked into the bathroom. "Ouch!" The green monster squealed as he tripped on a yellow rubber ducky and went rolling across the floor. Finally, Mike cracked into the wall and stopped. Then he heard a lot of giggling down the hall. Mike did not like this assignment or this house, but he was determined to find the party, so he lifted himself off the floor and followed the laughter. But when he found the right door and opened it, it was quiet. Slowly, Mike entered the dark, silent room. All of a sudden, a light went on. Mike jumped. Shannon Brown and all her friends started roaring with laughter. They thought Mike looked funny sneaking into the room. "Ah!" Mike was so frightened that he couldn't stop yelling. At the exact moment, the closed door opened, and Sully burst into the room. Sully was so surprised to find Mike screaming. All he could do was let out an equal big scream. "Ah!" he yelled. Then he and Mike jumped through each other and huddled in fright. The girls at the slumber party laughed and laughed and laughed. A big blue monster with purple spots hugging a one-eyed little green monster was one of the funniest things they have ever seen. Mike and Sully looked at each other and smiled. Then Mike jumped to the floor, and they both took a bow. The kids cheered. "Look, as if our work here is done," Sully said. He and Mike headed through the closet door and back to Monsters Inc., the lab floor. They had filled so many canisters with labs that Mike was named the top lab collector that day. "I was never scared for a second," said Mike, hoping Sully would believe him. "Me neither, buddy," Sully replied, his big furry fingers crossed behind his back. "Me neither." The end. Did you enjoy the story? How funny Mike Wazowski got lost in the house. I hope you enjoyed today's story. I send you kisses and a big hug. With love, Teacher Iris. Sweet dreams, little pumpkin.